reason that people normally come into body activation is because they have some sort of pain in their shoulder, right? What have they done so far for their shoulder? Name things that they've done for their shoulder.
PT, surgery,
stretching. What else?
doing strengthening exercises.
Regular strengthening exercises. Sometimes they get like needles stuck in it, right? Sometimes
Massages.
they massage. Sometimes they
Chiropractic.
ultrasound. Yeah. So, but like it's all targeted around what?
Where they think that the pain is stemming from.
Where their sensation they do not like is coming from. They've had very little success with going after where the sensation is coming from. That's why they're coming to you. Like, well, what's so different about your approach? And you're like, well, I'm doing all this stuff with strengthening the shoulder, and that strength equals blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I just don't see it helping a lot. What I see helping a lot is the quality of the entire system having better control, knowing exactly where there's been material damage or changes, or maybe even stumbling across something that's non-diagnosed. Oh man, I forgot to tell you a long time ago, smashed my elbow and I fractured my olecranon, or the tip of my elbow right here. Oh crap, how would a bone fracture change how this thing was controlled, especially if they were still growing? But if they were young and they had a fracture versus older in a fracture, these bones are still forming. Growth plates are still a part of this. If you've broke a bone, you don't feel much, right? That hurts so bad because there are sensors shooting messages out to the system saying, this isn't good. Local problem, get a cast on that sucker, or keep it not really moving a whole lot so it can heal and recover in the stages of recovery that we talked about in that one podcast.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we have our different stages of recovery for bone materials. And then in that bone, there are sensors. All right, so that means if there's sensors, they have to be connected to something, which are the tubes known as peripheral nerves. And those peripheral nerves have to send messages to your spinal cord, and that spinal cord goes to the brain to be processed to say like, okay, there's a problem here. Change how you move so that I can stop you from using that area now.
Yeah.
Or anything that's going to put forces into that area so that bone can remodel, can ossify, and now you have, hopefully, a union fusion. There's a big problem when those bones do not unionize. They're super fragile, right? So when we're talking about this, that's why it's like, okay, what's happened to the materials, what happens to control, and what happens towards what they're perceiving. That's the frame for a lot of this stuff. And in this little area here is where we call what? You remember that? Like what they're walking in with. What's their state, also known as agency? What's your mental state? What do you normally do to flush that out of them? Hey man, how's it going? What's your week like? You're flushing out their state. Oh man, I get fired from my job. My girlfriend punched me in the face. I'm doing this workout every day, squat every day. Why do my knees hurt? You're flushing out what their current state is. If you're utilizing exercise in order to then boost the system to help how they feel during what they're perceiving, how they're controlling stuff, damage to the system that may lead to poor outcomes of control. How many times has something been injured? Wow, man, that doesn't work that well. Or wow, every time they step on that ankle that keeps rolling, or they're on both feet and they're doing something, it's different than when they're sitting down and doing something. Maybe there's a way for that control to get better. That's why also, if you're working with someone, what is your agency? You think the type of day that you have, the previous encounters with other clients, and what's happening on your personal side, that's that I and R thing. What is my identity? What is my role? Being able to take some time and know where you're at with things, because how you view what a body even is. It's not a mind and it's not a body. It's a system that somehow is me. I believe that system is them. Me asking questions consistently about knowing what they're perceiving. It's a third of everything. And when I'm asking the questions of force with my hands and with the machines and with everything else, those are questions of control. Endurance is control under time. Rate of force development is control under different amounts of force and less time. Velocity is a different type of control. Tension is a different type of control. And when I think of control, I think of different types of information, taking in sensory information for what they see, what they hear. Have they lost their sense of taste? Would that change their force output? So tongue, problem like swallowing food. That's part of throat function. That's part of cervical function. Cervical stuff is a part of clavicular, scapular function. No, that's also a part of shoulder function. Crap. So when they say it's all connected, it's like play like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Never heard of that? That really dates me, right? Kevin Bacon.
I know who Kevin
Right?
Bacon is.
He's been in like every show and every movie like ever created for like the longest time. So he's basically worked with everybody. You could probably name an actor, or could probably link that actor to another actor, which would eventually have worked with Kevin Bacon within like 6 moves. So that's why they called it 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. In this case, you're looking at 6 degrees of any part of the body linked to another part of the body, have a rationale of why you would do something. Why would you intervene or not intervene? You're creating a case, and that case is based upon evidence of the materials, of the control, and what they're saying. I don't just randomly do. I'm trying to build a case every single time when everyone else is like, okay, let's do squats today. Let's do lunges today. We got to hit those glutes.
Everybody wants an Instagram booty.
Now you got your niche. If you just do hip stuff nonstop, what do you think it's going to happen to the cartilage of your hips over time?
It's going to wear away.
It may build up the cartilage more as long as it's intermittent, right? And build up the muscle, because like muscle, bones, they can get pretty strong. Tendons can kind of change a little bit too with the muscle because of blood flow and whatnot. But like, man, those ligaments and cartilage, they don't have much of a blood supply. If they were to try to advance torque really, really fast, you can beat the crap out of those things. And the only thing that you would ever know is that the muscles are tight around it because you can't sense cartilage damage. There's no sensation around it.
When people are doing all hip stuff, all they're doing is trying to train the glutes. They don't try to train anything else around the hips.
Can you just train glutes? And it's impossible. Someone can try to bias a part of their body. But even the exercises that bias parts of the body, there's known studies showing that the EMG activity of those areas in some people are active and other people just are not. How would you know?
It took forever for me to get my quads to feel anything.
Bingo. So like, how come your body chose not to use quads? Those are the questions that are of high value that people normally just do not ask. What are contributors towards muscular function? Why does the system choose one way and not another way? That's what we're trying to deduce, because other people just are not looking for that. This is a glute exercise, we're going to do glutes. Because like if it's a hip problem, we're going to go after hip stuff. If it's a knee problem, we have to go for knee stuff. When you're talking about the shoulder problem, right? People don't really know what the shoulder is. They're thinking the shoulder is just this. They maybe shove their shoulder in the ground, acromion and clavicular portion. They don't need to know any of the stuff that you're going through, the Kapanji manuals or any of the anatomy stuff. They're not there for that.
Yeah.
What you're looking for is, what was the mechanism of injury? And if I were to hit the ground and hit my shoulder, what are the chances if I did this, hit my head would get slammed and then my neck would jam to a certain position? And if they did hit their head, well, what are the chances that it's going to jostle their brain, right? Because it takes around 8 miles an hour for a brain jostle, which then could damage neurons because they're like gelatinous. So it's not about the brain hitting the side of the skull that's going to be the problem. It's the fact that all those nerves are made of really soft stuff. So if they get jostled and accelerated, they can get injured or rupture or tear, which then causes swelling and bleeding in the brain. And those structures are deep, which are completely linked to behavior and control. So I just had a couple concussions. Well, I haven't had one. I just had a whiplash. It was a long time ago. Do people know what happens when whiplashes affect the neck? If they had that type of material damage, well then, what areas are having trouble being controlled, right? So that's why I love this process, because like now we have a little shot of this thing. If I'm hitting the side of something and this is jamming, well, the mechanism was like, I got here and my shoulder got jammed down or back or in. Was I knocked out? Did I have a hit here and my head bounced up off the ground? Did I slam down on something and my shoulder went in and out of socket, dislocated? Because now I know if I hit something with my hand, there's got to be hand inclusion into this, because the mechanism of this whole it's like a synergy of trauma. Bam, I hit down on something and my shoulder went in and out of socket and went numb. It's me personally. So I'm like, okay, well, how would I reverse engineer this? I was standing. What was the material I was slapping down on? Because the body knows if I did this, right? and the lights are out, how come I can pick out the thicker markers? And I already have this vision in my head of what it is. Hands are really sensitive. Types of materials that they're actually in contact with can be directly linked with a trauma response. They got hurt slapping down on a basketball. You may want to have something that feels like that and see if including that feel is a part of this trauma circuit. Because anything that's a part of a trauma circuit, brain learns fast. It don't want to be hurt. It's like, oh man, I don't want to do that. Slowly introduce it. Take some time. Hit another rep. What happened? Do another rep. What happened? Agency, doing okay. Start to peel back the layers of what people are controlling and not controlling. Why are we looking at the shoulder to begin with? Knowing that the body view will guide how you're fitting this information in towards your application. Information without application just goes right through you. Where can this shoulder all be controlled? Where can it move? What are you and I calling the shoulder? So yeah, what bones are the shoulder?
We have the lovely scapula, humerus, clavicle.
Point to them.
Scapula, humerus, clavicle.
Clavicle. Cool. So you got it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we're calling the shoulder girdle. If you can move it, you could compare and contrast like one side to the other. I don't know how accurate that is because it's going to change from if someone's standing to if they're on their back to on their stomach. You could look at that stuff and say like, okay, that's one thing to see how they're controlling it and ask them how they feel when they're doing it. What are the movements that we all have with the shoulder?
We have lateral.
So what's lateral called? So if you're going this way, this is called what?
This is flexion.
You can call this lateral flexion, but this is also known as abduction, right? So abduction, what's this called?
Adduction.
Adduction. The definition is away from the midline, but then it's funny because then what is this? I'm going to the midline, right? So some people just like to call this lateral flexion. Some people call this medial flexion. So what's this?
This would be in the transverse plane, I know that much.
I got transverse, that's cool. Horizontal abductions. These are the made up planes that humans are like, oh yeah, these are the cardinal planes, right?
Yeah.
How many planes are there? Infinite. Well then, what the hell what are these? I can move in here, I can move in here. The scapula doing stuff, that's something different. What's this?
I want to say external rotation.
So external or lateral rotation. I like calling it external rotation, internal rotation, right? Of the humerus on scapula or glenoid because it's spinning in the glenoid of the scapula. So we had flexion. What's this?
Extension.
Extension. Cool. So we have flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, horizontal abduction, the rotations. What's this called then? This movement here where it's a combination of stuff. Because people would be like, I do these arm circles. Circumduction, right? Circle.
Yeah.
Abduction, adduction, circumduction, right? So it's like humans made this up. If we're looking at that is humerus on scapula, right? Now, what does the scapula do on rib cage? Some people give it a joint name, some people don't give it a joint name. That's the scapulothoracic joint. What's this joint?
Up here.
What's this bone?
This is the clavicle.
What's this?
Back here?
Yeah, that's scapula.
Oh.
This is humerus. That's scapula. What's this little part of the scapula called? You have a separation there. What do they call it? You have the clavicular part, right? So it's got clavicular in the name.
Yes.
So what part of the scapula is that?
Is this the AC joint?
Ah! Acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular. You have coracoid right here, and you have the acromion right here. So then you know that if you have these here, that this is already facing forward because like this is where the biceps are hooking up, right? So if you have this, which is like, actually got the right one. You know, if this is facing forward, you already know that this is exactly where that clavicle is going to fit. So that's like this. So I already know this is my right one, right? Because my clavicle is going to go right there. And this is going to hinge up and down like this. Think about how your scapula moves. Just go ahead and move it around once.
Up, down, it goes forward over the rib cage.
Goes up and down. It goes where else?
Back and forth over the rib cage.
Back and forth. So we have back and forth. This is attached just like this. And this is forward. It can go up and down like this, right? So if I just went up and down, it'd be doing this. Now, if I want to do this, they call that something different, right? So we have elevation, depression, when I do this. But if I do this and the glenoid is facing up, or facing down further, they have a different name for that. So the elevation, depression, what would this be? So remember, humans aren't that complicated. This is facing which way? Is it facing down or up?
Up.
Up. Is it going upward? Is it rotating? Put those two words together. It is upward rotation. Upward rotation of the scapula, downward rotation of the scapula.
I thought that was the elevation, depression, protraction,
Elevation,
and retraction.
depression, protraction, retraction. Awesome. And some people talk about the tipping and winging of the scapula. That's when supposedly this comes off of the rib cage differently in different angles. I'm not training that. I don't spend a lot of time on that. The thing that's interesting about the clavicle is that a majority of how this thing is going to move, going to kind of go up and kind of go down. In order for it to go up and down, they spin a little bit. I've had some shoulder problems. There's a disc that fits in here because the sternum and where this fits in, it's a really weird looking joint. I mean, look at that. And somehow this thing's got to be able to spin and go up and down right there. Well, if this thing is overworked, this will build up more bone, and that disc could be somewhat compromised. So that could add towards shoulder dysfunction at certain areas because this doesn't have a bony connection. This is the only bony connection of that whole shoulder. Crazy. This is the only bony joint connecting that AC to here. Ain't nothing on your backside. It's all muscle.
Human body is weird.
Crazy, isn't it? like a shoulder is like this crazy floating joint that needs timing from the muscle. If it does not have timing, so then what becomes important when someone tells you that they've had a concussion? Their timing's off. Right off the bat, they're not able to have accurate timing. Jaw problems, eye problems, tongue swallowing problems, whiplashy, cervical type problems, anything that has to do with upper motor dysfunction, they may not be able to have the temporal component down pat. They can't have stuff act fast because what has to happen if they're going to control something at a different rate of speed? The brain already has to have.
Yeah, so like already know it.
Has to have a plan.
Yeah.
It's
got to anticipate it.
Yeah. If it doesn't, it will not contract on command. And then there will be a problem. Or it just won't do it. I feel anxious about this.
You mean like how I just already know that I'm not going to be able to control something?
Right. Or you'll be very surprised if you did. You can ask him, like, how'd that feel? Was that okay? Did something happen there? And you looked at the ligaments of the glenohumeral joint, right? What was really cool about what you said, how they formed?
It was really interesting just seeing like how everything like just perfectly lays exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah. It's
to
like,
get everything covered.
Is the shoulder loosely packed or is it just like loaded with stuff? I mean, think about like how densely packed the entire body is. Is anything in the body normally not supposed to be there that's been created by your own body?
No.
Like that's like the definition of disease, right? So when people say, well, that's not really needed. Well, what? Like, why would your body waste any energy? Calories are at a premium. And then just with neuroplasticity, if you don't use it, it starts to get pruned. It's like if neuronal connections, man, they're energy vampires. Why would I perpetuate it if I don't need it? Everything in physiology comes at a cost. We're talking about the movement. Now we have the movements of the scapula, the clavicle, and the humerus. How are they moving together? People call that glenohumeral rhythm. What's happening with my arm?
I always have to forget or remember which one.
I try to forget all the time.
That's.
So if I go out to the side, can you put your finger on the bottom of my scapula? Is that moving at all when I get towards 90?
Yes.
Like a little bit, right? But not a ton. And now once I get to around 90, keep your finger on the bottom part. How does it change from when I get like 90 or 110 degrees up? What happens here?
It rotates.
It rotates, right? It rotates a lot. Now, if I look at this side, put your finger like right here. You feel that hypertrophied clavicle, parts of this movement. Same thing can happen going forward. But most people don't really talk about it going backwards. They don't talk about, I haven't seen that too often in the text. But I was thinking about that when I wrote this, where I was like, if I go backwards, what does my shoulder blade normally do? Normally doesn't want to retract. It kind of wants to go forward. It wants to roll forward, almost like protracts and elevates a little bit, right? Because I want to reach back. And sometimes my body doesn't normally do this unless I got to go around something. Usually does this. I usually do kind of like this flexion. That's the whole idea of kinematic synergy. What does something look like, or how did they get injured? What does it look like? And that process from them remembering is called amnesis. Like amnesia, when they're remembering, that's amnesis. So it's like they're going through something. You're like, oh, there was this time when a blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, can you show me what it looked like? Because now you start to see these kinematic synergies, kinematics being visual representations of how they're moving. And you can see what's moving on what. Are their feet on the ground? Are they rotated? Like how many things are we talking about are involved in this trauma plan? The trauma learning of one rep. They learned like one time, their body learned, and they're like, I don't want to go there again. I don't want to do that.
The last time that I had my concussion, I got smacked in the head with that.
The murder ball?
Yeah. And then you put me in the position, you pushed on me, and instantly I couldn't control anything because my body's like, no.
I don't want to do that. That's what's so fascinating about how many things then go into shoulder control. There are so many parts of these kinematic synergies that are involved into total body control, right? If there's been any problems with upper motor problems, concussions, whiplashes, eye problems, inner ear problems, ear infections, vestibular problems, like people have vertigo, it's like you think their shoulders are going to be in a different place? Probably, right? If somebody had ankle sprains and they're always on their feet and using their arms, or they're biasing one side and all of a sudden they're tilting their whole body to leverage one leg more than the other, shoulders already in a different position. Could be building a case towards the things that you could say, if I intervene, where are the safest places to start that maybe have a huge impact? And usually it starts where things have been pretty damaged. If it's a damaged spine versus like, well, I had an ankle sprain, you start training someone's foot and toes, what are the chances it's really going to piss their system off? Probably pretty low. Start taking out some of the low-hanging fruit. That's why I was like, oh, when bilateral frozen shoulder, like there was a thumb injury at one point in time, like what happens with this thumb stuff? And all of a sudden, like the thumb stuff led into this crazy process of how thumbs could be a big part of shoulder function. It's like, oh, it's interesting. Not for everybody, but there's a lot of people that have had thumb problems that have shoulder dysfunction. So it's like, oh, there's evidence. I'm not going to put all my eggs into the thumb basket, right? It's like there are so many different paths to help boost the ability of the control. Because once they have better control, chances are they're going to perceive something better and that agency goes up. Let's go back through the motion. Why don't you do the motions and tell me them?
So we have abduction, adduction, horizontal abduction and adduction.
Horizontal, add.
I said ab and add.
Yep. So this way is?
Add, ab.
Good. Nice.
And then we have the rotation, external, internal.
Really good.
And then we have flexion, extension.
Good. What's this?
Elevation and depression.
Yeah.
Can't be doing all this apparently. What are we doing? Forward, backward.
I'll do a combo,
So-
right? What's this?
That would be
I'm going
up, upward.
upward. Is
Upward.
it going straight or is it rotating?
Thank you. Rotation.
Okay. Where is this going?
Downward.
And it is
Rotation.
rotation. Good. If I'm going to help see how these things are working, and I want to see how both sides are doing what, we can do one side at a time. You could do both sides. I mean, they're all possibility. But the whole point is what happens while they're doing this. And that's what you're observing, becoming an unbelievable observer of the details. Because once that's observed, it's like, does it always stay that way? It spawns more questions because the whole point is what they're experiencing. That's the whole reason they're there. I have this shoulder pain. However, what do we know about pain?
That's just a sensation.
It's just a sensation that they do not like right now, right? If they did not have it,
Not going to you.
or they'd be doing something else,
Yeah.
right? So knowing that the different ways that they're doing and organizing stuff could quite possibly change all of this. That's such a huge idea. Next week, what we'll do is we'll go specifically through if there's trauma to certain ligaments. And I'll put some data about the distribution of different receptors and how that may be included in towards how you would perceive something. So what were some of the biggest takeaways?
I mean, other than the fact that we don't train enough of the motions, we literally just do pressing motions for shoulders. We don't do anything else.
How would you go about finding samples for a person to see how they feel?
So like if it was my guy who had a torn rotator, as we heard from the chiropractor, I'd maybe just see like what his range of motion would be in all planes, see if a specific thing causes anything to flare up, and then also see if he's had any head traumas, has any issues with anything like that. And
Would you
then-
have them seated or standing, or would you Would
Do
you
all of
change it up too?
Probably do all of them. How he got hurt, because he still hasn't told me how he got hurt.
Show me.
Yeah.
It's a good one. If he does something and he's got a weird look, press him. What happened there? As soon as it happens, timing. What happened there? What's going on? And all of a sudden, they'll either have an answer. I'm like, man, I don't know. Or it hurts or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, can you explain it? What is the it? So I have a better understanding. Just them having words for what they're going through is already part of a healing process. You can put that down. The last time you said, this is like this. Is it still like that? Once they have a word for it, words are about constructing context and emotion towards a state of being. That's why words are so powerful. They're already putting words to this. Now they have a mental construct around it. They have a way for their brain to have a construct around it. Now they know if they're getting better or worse. And that's a whole positive and negative valence, how that's getting better or worse. It's all about agency. Are they getting better? Do I feel better? And if they're not feeling better, do they have to be patient? Because they're like, hey, I'm not expecting this to feel better for a while because I know these material continuums, they don't get better right away. If I was just a materialist thinking that materials are the only thing that's going to make somebody feel better, which it is not. Sometimes it's also their sensation and control, which usually is a function of software, how information is being passed towards all these different cells. And that's a software thing, a living, organizing software problem. But it's awesome at the same time. Tons of opportunities. In that Good Notes article, there is a whole bunch of ideas of ways in to intervene. And that's why it's like, just keep, if you want to add to it, if you want to make some notes on it, those will update in real time on my end. And we'll definitely go with that. Cool? Awesome.